Okay, guys. My name is Justin Leverett. I'm a worship pastor at Fellowship Bible Church in Texarkana. And recently I was looking for a way to get ProPresenter to run my light program, okay, which is here, the myDMX light program, simply just by running through the service program. So I'm going to show you the video of the solution to this problem. If it's something that you want to do, all you have to do is have a light program, which is compatible with a computer. By compatible with a computer, I mean some programs like the ADJ myDMX light program comes with a particular dongle that you have to connect to your computer in order to run this software and control the light program. Okay? So if you have that, and you also have ProPresenter, then there's a couple things that you need to do in order in order to connect the two programs so that they talk to each other. First thing I'll say you need to do is to run an Ethernet cable from your iMac or your MacBook into a Ethernet switch. Okay, if you run it into an Ethernet switch and then also run the computer that you are going to control with an Ethernet cable into a switch, it has to be at least a 1 gigabit or gigabyte switch. I'm not that tech savvy. So that there is no latency. That's very important. The first thing you have to do to make ProPresenter compatible with using another computer through a MIDI network is you have to go to your ProPresenter preferences. Okay. Then you have to go to modules, and in modules you'll see a MIDI module which you can purchase that allows ProPresenter to talk through MIDI notes to another device, whether it's a computer or just a piece of hardware that's a MIDI controller. Okay, if you're using a MIDI controller, getting ProPresenter to connect to it for this particular purpose seems kind of redundant, because ProPresenter essentially becomes the MIDI controller for your light program. Okay? Once you've purchased that, this particular module is about $99. Okay? So purchase that, activate it. Okay? Now, how do you get the two computers to communicate with one another? The first thing you have to do is go to your audio MIDI setup for your Apple computer. Okay. Here, I'm going to start a new session. I already have my session active. Okay. But just for the sake of this video, I'll create a new one. Okay. It's titled Session 2. Okay. And the Bonjour name will be ProPresenter Computer. Essentially, you're using the program Bonjour in your personal computer in order to communicate on the correct protocol with your iPad. So if you have iTunes or QuickTime downloaded on your PC, if it's a PC, if it's a Mac, you don't have to worry about that. But if it's a PC, that's what allows the two to communicate with one another. Okay? So with the new session that you created, you can rename, and I recommend you rename it what your computer is going to be named so that they can be recognizable when you go to connect to them in the other computer, which we'll get to in just a second. Activate the session. The local name will be Session 2, the port 5006. make sure it is enabled. Okay. Network session 2, the network session that you're setting up needs to match the name. So the one that I'm actually running is named ProPresenter Computer. So that is the network that I will want to communicate to my light program computer. Okay, so I would select that output signal or that network in order to send the orders to my light program. But for now, I'm going to select network session 2 because that's the session I just created. Okay, and then my other computer called Worship Tech, which runs the lights, is already there. I can connect to it. Okay, but the session that I set up over here, because you have to create a session in this program too, using rtpMIDI, which is a free program that you can find. Just search rtpMIDI in Google or another search engine, and this program will come up. The icon looks just like this. Okay. So I need to create a session to mirror the one that I just created. Okay. And make it active. Okay. The port 5006. It matches the port now that I just created here. So I can disconnect Worship Tech and connect Worship Tech 1. There you go. So I've done what I need to there. The other thing I need to do is in ProPresenter, go back to Preferences, and go to Communications. Okay. In order to make this work, you have to add a device, which we will call MIDI. Okay. And if you'll see, my sources and my destinations are listed here. ProPresenter Computer, that's the one I actually run. Bus 1, which is the A1C driver, AIC driver in your computer, but we don't use it, or Session 2. So I can select Session 2 as my source and destination. Okay, and click Save. Then I connect. Okay, then I've got one in and one out because I only checked one of the boxes. Okay. Whoops. So then you want to capture your MIDI inputs to your various scenarios that you've already set up. Set up a scene. I have one called Worship Song 1. If I right click on that, you can click Learn MIDI Command. Okay. And that's after you have already set up the MIDI note for the background that you want to trigger that MIDI note. Okay. So in order to do that, you hit, see if I can do this right. You have to Control click inside the background in Media Shout. You want to add a cue. You add a communication cue that corresponds to the MIDI device that you just set up. This is my real one. This is the one I just set up for the sake of this video. Okay, hit MIDI note on. This window will pop up, and then you select the MIDI note. Okay, a big list of MIDI notes that you could send that you want to correspond with that particular light scene. Okay, now I made a list of the MIDI notes that I'm sending to individual light scenes because from Sunday to Sunday, as that particular background might change, I want the particular spot in my service to correspond to the same MIDI note so that it goes to the same light scene in my computer, my lighting program computer. And I can just change the color scheme of the scene. That's how I do it here. You can do it a different way, but this is how you will assign the MIDI note. Make sure channel 1 is adequate. Make sure the intensity is also channel 1. This intensity number corresponds to a certain group of MIDI functions or group of functions here. If you were to go to MIDI setup, you can see that you've got different ways of clearing the commands. These are all set to 0. But if it was, let's say if you just pulled this computer out of the box and installed ProPresenter, this would be numbered from 1 to 24. Okay? Various video controls, various presentation actions. Okay, so these would all be a certain MIDI note, okay, here. The number here is the intensity, which sort of assigns to that particular MIDI note another function within ProPresenter, like clicking to the next playlist item. I have all zeros because I find that whenever I'm assigning those MIDI notes to my lighting program, you don't want any other nonsense going on that creates what appear to be glitches. They're really not. You're just sending more data than you want to. Okay, so I've got that set up. Now, just to show you, see, we will hit done. Okay, and now the icon you see here shows that you have a communications queue set up for that particular background. I need to remove the one that I just added because I don't want that. I do not want that one involved. But I will show you now what happens. This is my regular on setting for my lights. When I click on this background, my light setting changes. When during the normal course of the timers that I've set up, my countdown starts, my lighting program changes. So forth and so on. I have scenes set up for every individual section of the service. Okay, so a particular song with a red background or an orange background, I have a lighting scheme change. Okay, for blue, and the time it takes to program this actually isn't very long at all. Once you have the initial setup done with the rtpMIDI program, then everything else kind of flows together pretty smoothly. I start a video, my lights will go down, so forth and so on. So that's how you do it. If I wasn't clear about anything, please give me a comment below, and I will try to answer that for you in comments. Thank you, guys.